Hi, this is David Gronowski, host of A Neighbor's Choice and Things Hidden podcast, as well as some of our other programs like Science and You with our chief science advisor, Dr. Yu, and our seed oil survival series that we continue to have great fun unpacking the truth of nutrition. I wanted to give you a quick little message saying we appreciate all the support that we get from our uh, monthly contributors and our one-time donation supporters. And we'd encourage all of you to go to our website, a neighborschoice.com, click on contribute, and make a monthly pledge today, whether it's $1, $5, 15, 20, 50, whatever you want to do. Doesn't matter. Just be a part of building this new media project that we've developed to empower and inform, to inspire, to kickstart a scientific renaissance, an anthropological breakthrough and reformation in the church. All these things are possible with your support right now. So make that commitment today and help us keep doing the productions that we have. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and we're back at it again, man. How you doing, Shane?
Doing great. I feel privileged that we've hijacked Things Hidden.
Yeah, yeah. We're getting to fill in for David this week, so
Yes,
it'll be interesting. Uh, I started off with a nice little background here, so I figure
I like it.
thanks.
Yeah,
But
it looks like you've got the center of the universe behind you.
yeah, yeah. I'm on cloud nine, brother. Yeah. But yeah, okay. So today we're talking about Sister Wilhelmina. Uh, she's she was a nun who passed away. I think what in May or
No. She passed away. I think it was quite a while ago. It was like 20 years ago or something.
okay, okay, wow,
Um,
okay, yes, that's right. What am I saying? Yeah, she passed away a while ago. But here's an article here on uh, her incorruptibility. This is from Catholic Herald. It says thousands travel to see incorrupt remains of Sister Wilhelmina Lancaster. Um, Thousands of pilgrims have traveled to see the incorrupt remains of the body of Sister Wilhelmina Lancaster, which were yesterday placed inside a glass case inside the monastery she founded in Missouri. Sister Wilhelmina Lancaster died at age 95 4 years ago, but when exhumed by the Benedictine Sisters of Mary on April 28th in Gower, her body and habit, which lay in simple wooden coffin, were surprisingly intact. So that's that's an article that from about 2 months, or a month ago, and it was it was very popular within the news cycle around, I want to say, May and early June, because she started receiving a lot of pilgrims. Like, a lot of people started coming, to see her body, and and you know see how her body has stayed intact and everything. But I think one of the more interesting things here is that you know I'm not sure, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is like maybe one of the first times we ever had like a case like this in the United States. Is that true, or do you know that?
I think it's the first time in North America. I could be wrong.
Yeah, yeah, in North America, right?
And I also think it's the first. I think she's the first African American incorruptible, too,
Right, right, right.
or
Yeah,
or
it's
or
yeah,
or or, or African.
yeah, Yeah.
that we know of, because there may be others that we end up discovering down the road that are and were incorruptible, that we, whenever their graves get exhumed.
Right. Yeah. Now I want to ask this. What do you think of like the whole idea of incorruptibility? It being something that a lot of people are skeptical about. You know, I don't want to say a lot of people, but people that tend to be not as religious or hold to any kind of faith-based view, and everything is sort of very empirical for them or scientific. It has to be like it has to make some kind of rational or logical sense, right? And something like this seems to be out of the realm of reason, right? So, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, so I guess the first thing is, and before I said that she died 2 decades ago, she died in 2019. So,
Okay. It's
I
yeah.
don't want to get, I don't want for this to be misinformation. But if you think about it, the first incorruptible in Christian tradition was the Lord, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He died and he was resurrected, and although his body had been uh, mutilated during the Passion,
Mm-hmm.
he was still incorruptible. If anybody has ever been around uh, uh, dead bodies, or has ever known anybody that has that's told them stories about them, I mean, the human body does not hold up well after death. It starts to decompose almost immediately.
Right.
You end up having fluid that moves everywhere. It starts breaking down because the soul is not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But there are these certain cases, like Sister Wilhelmina, of people that were very holy, and God enacts a miracle
Mm-hmm.
upon and through their body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really, and also too, if we're supposed to be uh, living reflections of the Lord, then who was the first incorruptible. I don't think I don't think it's irrational or unscientific to look around with rational expectations that we will see these cases every so often. In
Mm-hmm.
the same way that there are miracles that happen, there are people that get healed, through the intervention of the Lord, and there are there are miracles that happen around us where science cannot explain it.
Yeah.
Um, and one thing that's really important to know about Sister Wilhelmina in particular is, um, it has been confirmed that she was not embalmed.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that happens. So when when someone when someone dies, the typical practice in the United States and in other first world countries is to do the embalming process, which, very very simply put, what that is they remove your bodily fluids and replace them with chemicals.
Right.
And the chemicals act as a preservative for your bodily tissue.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that does not mean that body will instantly become incorruptible. That's buying the body like a few more weeks, or maybe at most like another month. You're not dealing with extending the life of the tissues of the body for very long. I've actually talked to morticians and stuff about this.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, so the thing is, what you're buying, even when you embalm the body, you're buying a matter of weeks, maybe a month at the most.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing about her body that's very interesting, is she was not embalmed.
Yeah.
She wasn't filled with those chemical preservatives.
Right.
Um, she was her body was basically put in a wooden box and then
Mm-hmm.
and then buried under the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
So you can even think about it. That box wasn't even totally sealed.
Mm-hmm.
So bugs and stuff really should have gone in and started nibbling on her, but really, because this was a miraculous event, bugs stayed away from her.
Yeah.
Even her robes that she was buried in, her habit and everything were perfectly preserved. That in and of itself is unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's certainly it's certainly a story to tell, man. I'm thinking about and I think you had alluded to it. The fact that she was the first uh, Black or African American um, woman that we've heard of that whose body was found incorruptible. I'm just thinking about like the times we're in right now, right? Like the cultural sort of makeup that we're in right now, where we're seeing a lot of you know uh, sort of critique of the African American culture in like mainstream media, and what it how it sort of displays uh, you know I want to say how it displays Black women, in general, in a media sense, right? So you've got like you know stars like the Cardi B's, the Beyonce's, whatever, and they've gotten this sort of hype, you know what I mean, or this fame through what's the word I'm looking for? Through promiscuity, right? Or through through some sort of like totally totally nihilistic, you know what I'm saying? Totally extreme, way of getting fame,
Yeah.
But this one lady, who was a nun, I think, for at an early age, she became a nun and started this. What do they call it? Is it a nunnery? Should I say a nunnery
A
or a,
well, a convent, right?
convent? Yeah, she
Yeah.
started a convent, in this town, and
Well, she started this convent later on in her life.
mhm, mhm.
And that's kind of an interesting story that we can get into a little bit later.
Okay, yeah, but I just think it's interesting that this this one lady was able to catch so much attention, you know, by from sort of this, what appears to be a miracle, that, but she was never, really heard from in her lifetime. No one really knew about her while she was alive, but when she died, she became sort of I want to say a witness, you know, uh, to you know to the world, to Americans, you know, um,
Mhm.
and maybe she's helping to set sort of a trend or changing the tone, in the way that, like, you know, I want to say, you could say something like, it's good to be a nun. It's good to live a holy life, right? Like you should strive to live a holy life, live a pious life, And I think she's a perfectly good example of that, you know. Um, Being that we have so many other types of examples that are not exactly positive, but yeah.
Let me tell you that. Let me read this. So this is a quote from an article written about her life, and it was in the Catholic Herald.
Hmm.
So it says about Sister Wilhelmina, a traditionalist and devotee of Gregorian chant and the Latin Mass, Sister Wilhelmina disapproved of a number of the changes to religious life brought about after the Second Vatican Council. She made particular efforts to preserve the religious habit, even making her own when unable to attain one elsewhere. So I think the thing that I narrow in on in that quote is Wilhelmina disapproved of a number of changes to religious life brought about after the Second Vatican Council. Note that it's not as a result of the Second Vatican Council, because the Second Vatican Council did not call for nuns to drop their habits and stuff like that. That was a cultural thing that was feminism trying to push its way into the church in many ways. But that was not a change made because the Second Vatican Council called for it. It's because a bunch of bozos claiming that they had the proper interpretation of the Second Vatican Council said, well, now nuns have got to get rid of their habits and this and this and this and we got to get rid of Gregorian chants and stuff. But Sister Wilhelmina, she remained loyal to the deposit of the faith, and she remained loyal to her calling. And I think in many ways, God is calling attention to her, because we're living in a time, you, David, and I, and Surratt talked about, I think it was a couple weeks ago, we were talking about tradition and just how we're living in just a crazy time. And, for people that are living in our time, for people that are our age, people like Sister Wilhelmina, I think, are excellent examples for us to look to.
Yeah.
And are people that we can look to ask the question, okay, so what is the authentic tradition that we should be looking to receive? Right. And as opposed to what are things that were just like cultural norms in the church that were not part of the deposit of tradition that was to be passed on. And the things that she stayed loyal to, like Gregorian chant, and mentioning the Latin Mass, the Second Vatican Council said, calls for Gregorian chant to be preserved as the unique music of the church, and also called for Latin to be preserved as the official language of the church.
Yeah. Now this might be a little left of field, but I'm gonna ask this question. Like, okay, some people might say, well, this was a Black woman that had just been indoctrinated too much into the European way of thinking. Does that make sense? What I'm saying? Like, to say, oh, she's she likes Gregorian chant. she that's sacred to her. Latin Mass. She holds to the views of pre-Vatican II. Isn't she just being a little too what is the right word? Too dogmatic or too traditionalist? Is she just a
stiff-necked old
fogey. She's just a stiff-necked person. What do you say?
I remember I saw a clip right after she died where they interviewed some of the nuns that were under her, because she was the foundress of a convent that was kind of out in the middle of nowhere, kind of out in the sticks in Missouri, I think.
Yeah.
And they were interviewing some of the nuns that like apprenticed under her, and they were saying that she had little songs that she would always sing. And they were very they all had their own little rhythm. And I think the nun, I think she sang one of them on this little interview. And they all looked at each other, and this one said, okay, I'll be the one to sing it. And it was, I mean, it was not a Gregorian chant, but they said that she would teach them all these little sayings, and they were always to a beat.
Right.
And the thing that it made me think of like R&B music. It made just the way that it sounded, that the rhythm that it was to.
yeah, the sort of cadence and everything is, yeah. I mean, for me, what I think is that you know, uh, irregardless, of her race, I think one thing that, like, you can say when a person you know, finds holiness or they find God, you know, to me, it doesn't really matter, uh, you know, if it's like a traditional thing, it's your background shouldn't determine whether you can listen to Gregorian chant or not. You know what I mean? Or if you consider Latin to be a sacred language, especially if you're a Catholic,
Yeah.
but they're um, and I don't know enough about the history of the church moving into this direction of Vatican II and everything. But what I what I have what I have observed is you know um, there's certain churches within the Catholic Church that the mass is always like strumming on a like it's strumming on a guitar. You know what I mean? They've got the wooden guitar, and they've got and I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, because that's what some people like, but uh I do think that some of that um takes away from I guess the seriousness or the sacredness of the liturgy, you know and I feel as though um it doesn't allow for people to really uh say conceive of being in a particular place where like the outside world is not in here. You know what I mean? Like this is a sacred space. We do things differently, and the reason I say that is because when you look at just about any other tradition, whether it's a Christian one, um, like Orthodox, or you look at other religions, like Hinduism, Buddhism, uh, Shinto, whatever, they all maintain a like a sacred language. They maintain like sacred traditions that like you don't do on a normal basis. You know what I mean? Those things, you do at the temple, or you do at the shrine, or whatever. You know what I mean? And even young people respect. They understand that and respect it. You know what I mean? They acknowledge it. That like, oh yeah, this is a sacred space. You see like Japanese families going to the Shinto shrine. You know what I mean? They purify their hands with the water, and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Or you go to a Hindu wedding or something like that. They have the fire rituals and stuff like that they do. You go to a Greek Orthodox church. They're doing their liturgy in the I don't know, Koine Greek or whatever it is. So you know I do think there is a certain level of certain I don't know what the word is. Maybe I don't want to say it's pessimism, but it's like uh we don't really cherish our own traditions. We don't really cherish the uh traditional Catholic um ways of doing things. you know the liturgy, the Gregorian chant, you know, the observation, the holy days of observations, obligations. Those things seem to be a little lost on us. You know, um, and then it's like young people like us feel like we have feel like we're fighting against like we're we're trying to be old, but it's to me, I don't feel that way. I don't feel like I'm trying to be old. I just feel like I'm trying to actually find some stability. And where do you find the greatest stability? You find it in tradition. you know it's not in these new uh camp songs, you know
Yep.
and wearing of sandals in the church. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't find that to be you know I don't find it to be that meaningful, you know. uh,
Well, and you have people like Sister Wilhelmina that she kind of saw the writing on the wall, because she saw
mhm,
convents full of nuns, in the 70s, I'm guessing, probably 70s and 80s, just utterly collapse.
mhm,
you
mhm,
know and she wanted to preserve, what she could,
mhm.
in the tradition of Saint Benedict, going out and establishing a little community,
Mhm,
and kind of putting everything there,
mhm.
um that's worth imitating, that for it to be discovered and then imitated through the rest of the community, to change it through 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 uh through building a living representation of the way that she thinks things should be.
Yeah, yeah.
Saint Benedict, going out and establishing the monasteries and stuff,
Mhm,
as being like the hub of the, like a little outpost for Christendom, and then the
mhm.
rest of the community would begin imitating it,
Yeah,
and then become wrapped up into Christendom would grow as a result of that.
right.
She was a Benedictine.
Yes. Mm. Yeah, it's something how like she chose sort of being in the away from the city. You know,
Yeah,
uh, you know, uh, me and David, and I think we've discussed this before. Like, there's something about God choosing to have His people away from the city, or to bring them into a different, you know, not an isolated place, but just away from, I always like to say away from Babylon. You know what I mean?
mm,
You're getting away from the chaos, in order to try and restore some rationality, some reason and rationality, the right type of reason and rationality. You know what I'm saying? Of like starting a community where the church is at the center and it grows. You know what I'm saying? And you have, yeah, like you said, the examples of and imitating a Christian lifestyle. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot we could draw from Sister Wilhelmina's life, and I
well,
think
and,
that
and the interesting thing is in the West and in the East, there's a Incorruptibles, the incorrupted bodies of the dead in Christ, have been found since, for like, at least, as far as I could tell, for at least 1,500 years plus.
mhm,
And the interesting thing is in some cases, not only were the bodies incorrupt, but they also smelled like roses, or even smelled like incense.
mm, mm,
Like
yeah,
a
wow,
complete and total inversion
yeah,
of the fallen, of the whole fallen, set of rules that traditionally govern a dead body.
right, right, yeah. That's I never, well, I didn't know that, but I would have never thought to thought to
Well, this is something that got me, that I was thinking about too. Actually, uh, just before we started talking, was the mausoleum to Lenin in Russia, in the former Soviet Union.
Mhm.
It's a massive building, and it houses the incorrupted body of Vladimir Lenin.
Okay, yeah,
And the reason the Soviets did that was they knew that Eastern Christians you know, generally speaking, the Eastern Christians have always been a little bit more mystical and open to mysticism than Western. Not not saying that the West is not mystical and that the East is totally, but it's just I think historically, I think the East have typically been a little bit more open to mysticism, and I think mysticism is more broadly inculcated into their
Yeah.
just into the most basics of what they believe.
Right.
And so to the Soviets, knowing if they were going to be persuasive in convincing the Russians and convincing the whole East, which are largely Orthodox and Eastern Catholic and Armenians and all kinds of stuff, if they were going to be successful in convincing them to go along with the whole Soviet thing, which was convincing them to go along with atheism, they had to prove that science could imitate the incorruptibility of a body.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had to pump Lenin up with all kinds of chemicals. They had to put wax on parts of his body. And they had to go do all kinds of things, and I'm sure they probably still have to go back through and pump him up with different chemicals and stuff every so often. They probably keep him in. Yeah, and they probably keep him in a special tank that prevents microorganisms from getting in there and everything.
Right.
But the thing, when you compare that with someone like Sister Wilhelmina, who she was not embalmed.
Yeah.
Her body was in the ground in not a fancy casket, but in a wooden box that had holes in it.
Mm-hmm.
Bugs didn't get in there and start eating away at her body or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And her body was incorrupt. I mean, I don't think you could have any more of a contrast between the truth and the lie, which obviously the truth is the incorruptibility of Sister Wilhelmina's body and the longstanding tradition in Christendom of discovering incorrupted bodies, and then you contrast that with the counterexample that atheists would point to, which would be like the body of Lenin, which the question is what percentage of that thing is not chemicals. And the thing is, the incorrupted corpse of Sister Wilhelmina, that thing is 100% human.
Right. And even they were, I think her habit and everything, her habit and her what is it called?
Her robes, her vestments, her clothing.
Yeah, and the the
scapula.
Scapula. Yeah, was it hadn't deteriorated either. So I mean that makes a lot of sense, man. And
that's the thing. I think it's so interesting that if an ideology is going to come up and it's going to try to if it's going to even have a chance at axing away at Christendom, it has to create an inversion of the aspects of that truth. Like they have to have incorruptibles and they have to have relics.
Right.
And then it's just like, in the system, in the atheistic system, they have psychotherapy to imitate confession. Not saying that because therapy is very, very it's very, very helpful. Therapy is a wonderful thing, but they try to convince people to seek therapy for absolution, when therapy will never give someone absolution.
Right.
The only thing therapy can do is bring to light your resentments and stuff like that. Therapy will never bring you forgiveness or absolution the way the confession does.
Yeah, and it's definitely, sometimes it's done through coercion. Having to go to therapy too, right? Like they'll force you to go. You know what I mean? But with confession, that is it's encouraged that we do that, right? But no one is going to force you, You know
Right.
what I mean? They're not going to tell you, you must go. You know what I mean? Or whatever. We're going to force you into going into confession. So yes, there are a lot of there. Yeah, I think what you said about there's an inversion. Like
Hmm.
when you look at it, so many of the things that are I guess within the world, you can say that they have the exact opposite. So you talked about uh, uh, relics and stuff, and I'm thinking here like cult of personality. Like with Stalin and Lenin and Mao,
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Well,
So
and you even look in like in North Korea, and then you can also look in China and stuff. They perfectly preserve the childhood home of Chairman Mao. They perfectly
right,
preserve the childhood home of oh man, the founder of the North Korean regime, the
Kim Jong
uh
Un, Kim,
Kim Il Sung,
I'm
the
sorry. Yeah,
his grandfather. They perfectly preserved the little hut that he was born in.
yeah.
And people take pilgrimages there, and they go up to the top of whatever that mountain is that they say that he hopped in the back of a crane and it took him to heaven.
Uh,
It's really interesting how, and I think all of that kind of clues us into how the human mind is designed to work, and how the human mind is designed to perceive truth.
yes,
And it's really interesting to to see how the most effective perversions of the truth, or I guess to say the most effective perversions of the truth are inversions of the truth, you know?
mm, hmm yeah. It's well, and I'm thinking. I think another thing here is no matter how much the human brain or human society wants to get away from the religious, I think we can't. We 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 try to uh, move as far away as we can, thinking that we reached the 21st century now. Like all this stuff just doesn't make any sense. It's not rational. But in some ways, I mean, and this is something that I think people are people are starting to be aware of. And I'll just end with this. Um, a lot of people that I've been listening to over the past couple of weeks have been making this claim that, like, um, secularism, um, you know, we live in a pagan society right now,
Mhm.
right? Like, even though it tries to claim that it's not religious, it it is something much more akin to Roman religious worldview, or a pagan worldview. And I forget what there's another lady. She's a lawyer, and she was making this claim uh, that our society further has moved further away from Christianity and into a much more Roman pagan style of thinking about, uh, like, the sacredness of life, and you know a whole host of things. And I also think, um, I remember, me and David did a talk with Tom Holland, Dr. Tom Holland,
Mm.
and he said some very similar things. So, yeah, that's one thing. I think we, even though we're trying to deny that we're not religious, or it's like, well, I'm just an agnostic, or I claim to know nothing, or I'm an atheist. I don't think. I think that way of talking and that way of thinking has actually led us back into sort of a pagan way of life. You know.
Yeah. Well, you also think about at the time of the communist revolution in China in the late 40s.
Mhm.
uh there was a bishop. I don't remember what part of China it was, but he he recorded everything that he saw when the communists would first roll in. He recorded step by step what they did, and he said the very first thing that they did was they grabbed all the adults in the community. I don't really think they messed with clergy because they planned on killing the clergy. But they took the adults and they set up big tents, and this bishop wrote and said, he was very curious as to what they were, going to the tent to learn about, because it was clearly going to be like a class. So he figured, oh, they're probably going to teach them about Marx, or they're probably going to go over, the writings of Mao or something. Well, he snuck in and saw that what they were being taught were the writings of Charles Darwin and the writings of Lyell. Basically teaching that the earth is billions of years old, and that there's nothing divine about man, and that man will never be divine. That man is just an animal, just like all the rest of them, and that there is no such thing as serendipity in the universe. That it is just everything is just purely accidental and incidental, and your lives do not matter. That there's nothing, and the thing, and it's really interesting how what Christianity does is it teaches people that their life matters, that they were created by a loving God that infused his image, infused his image onto them, and that's the exact, it's like, it's again, we're talking about an inversion here. It's not just an opposing point of view or something. It's not saying, oh, you were created in the image of a porcupine by a giant, but by a flying spaghetti monster who created you in the image of, created your soul in the image of a porcupine. No. We're not talking about a perversion. We're talking about a total inversion, saying you were, that nothing created you.
Right.
This
random.
Is all just random chance. Yeah. And the only reality in the universe is power. And that's it. Like, what Christendom teaches is that the ultimate reality in the universe, right, is love. And the thing is, the two are not mutually exclusive, but the inversion of it is saying, no, love does not exist. The only thing that does exist is power and force.
Right. Amen, brother. I'm not, I think I've done more listening than talking today. So it's been very
okay. Well, here. One last thing I want to bring up, and we kind of addressed it before, but I think it's very significant that we're living in a time that is very racially charged, where we have the far left who are saying that race doesn't matter, but race is the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
And then we have the super far right that are saying race is the only thing that matters. And then you've got then you have Christians that are in the middle saying race is real, but it's not the most important thing. I think it is so interesting that in the time we're living in right now, that God ordained for her incorruptible body to be discovered at the time that we're living in. Her incorruptible body was not discovered during the summer of love. Her incorruptible body was not discovered in 2016. It wasn't discovered in in 2016 she was still alive. What I meant to say was her body was not discovered in 2020, 2021. It's just interesting that it was discovered now.
Right.
It's just, I think in many ways we're living in a time that at least the secular world has never been more racially charged. And for her incorruptible body to be discovered, and she's the foundress of that convent, and and like you mentioned earlier, she was somebody, she really didn't want the spotlight. She just wanted to go on and continue doing what was good and doing what was right.
Right.
What do you think the significance is here? I mean, this is a big deal, man. Like, not only was she an incorruptible that was discovered, but I believe she was the first one in North America to be discovered, and I believe the first black woman to be discovered that was incorruptible. I
Yeah,
mean, just
that's why I do think it you know, I'm not gonna say like it's a loud message or something like that. I think it's one of those what did he call it? You know, God's voice was in the wind. It's that
yeah,
still voice. Trying to convey something to us. For me, I just see it as an opportunity for, say, more for more young people in general, and for Black people in particular, to see, maybe restore our relationship with faith, restore our relationship with God, uh, thinking about Christianity and things like that, which, because for so long we were told that it was wrong, that it was not that it was like it was backwards. You know what I'm saying? It was just outdated. There's no, you know what I'm saying? You go to church just because, grandma asked you to. Like, it's not really that big of a deal anymore, you know? Um, but I think this has given us, seeing her, uh, seeing her body the way it is. I think it's sort of given us a chance to rethink our relationship to faith, and that's it's an important thing. I mean, she lived until she was 95.
yeah.
That's pretty that's a really you know pretty good age, to live that long. So, she led a a holy life, you know and you know she did for others, and things like that. I mean, that's all. Like you said, she wasn't trying to gain fame. She wasn't trying to be rich. You know, uh, she just wanted to, you know, follow the Lord. And you know, that's all. We all should be trying to do that. You know what I mean? Even though it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's very, especially this day and age, man.
Yeah, it's hard to do, but it's when you have examples like that, I think it makes it a little more, um, a little more like, okay, I can go another day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can just, take another step. You know.
Well, it makes it a lot easier to keep your eyes set on heaven when you have when you have a mirror like her that's aimed up at heaven.
Right.
You can look at her life, and her life is pointing up toward heaven, and you're like, oh, okay. Y- you know
Yeah, exactly.
it it helps you set your gaze back to where it needs to be.
Right, right. Rather than looking around, yeah, you can
Yeah.
look. Yeah, yeah. All right, brother.
All
Well,
right, man.
hopefully, we made the guest of things hidden, uh,
Yes.
you know, happy this week with our talk. So yeah,
Well, and ultimately, I'm hoping that we made David happy.
yeah. Look,
Because yeah, because man, to try to live up to David, man, that is a tall order.
yeah. I'm not a
No.
rhetorician.
Yeah.
All right, man. Good talking to you, bro.
All right, Shannon, you too.
All right.